Alright, you guys, today we got the luckiest people who survived the impossible. Now, I'm not gonna lie, we're just gonna hop into it. Cause I don't even know what the heck this thing is, what it means, you know what I'm saying? Mic check, mic check. Everything's good, everything's great, perfect.
An experienced truck, Stephen McCormack.
Hopping straight into
an
the video, huh?
experienced truck driver from New Zealand, was working on his truck. He was positioned between the truck's bumper and the trailer when something
I can already
crazy
tell this is not
happened.
gonna end
He
well.
slipped and fell, but something felt off. He didn't
What?
feel just regular pain. He felt his body inflating like a balloon, nearly doubling in size. His colleagues and his son rushed to help him, quickly realizing what had actually happened. Stephen had fallen onto the brass valve that supplies compressed air to the truck's brakes. The valve punctured his bum, forcing pressurized air into his body. They immediately shut off the air supply.
So the air went into his ass crack. And it's basically pumping his stomach up like he's basically an Oompa Loompa.
Laid him on the ground and called an ambulance. Unfortunately, both emergency vehicles in the area were occupied, forcing him to wait in that state for an entire hour. When he finally arrived at the hospital, doctors understood the severity of his condition. The air had separated fat tissue from muscle, filling his abdomen, chest, and even the spaces around his lungs, heart, and behind his eyelids. To help him breathe, doctors inserted a tube through his ribs and into his lungs. As for the trapped air, it had to be expelled naturally through farts, a process that took 3 days. Stephen made a full recovery, and doctors later determined that if the valve had punctured another part of his body, it could have damaged a blood vessel, and he would have died. Joan Murray.
So this dude basically had something up his butt, and it basically separated like parts of his stomach from his fat or whatever. And then after that, he had to fart it out, bro. Basically, wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Joan Murray was an experienced skydiver, having already completed 35 jumps. It was supposed to be just another routine dive, and as she plummeted at 120 miles per hour, she attempted to deploy her parachute. I say attempted because it didn't open. After multiple tries, she reached for her reserve parachute, which, to her relief, deployed successfully. However, another problem quickly arose. She began spinning uncontrollably, causing the parachute's cords to tangle into a knot, rendering it useless. She crashed into the ground at 80 miles per hour, and upon impact, she heard a loud crack before losing consciousness.
I bet.
Joan fell into a coma and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors performed multiple complex reconstructive surgeries and blood transfusions. The entire right side of her body was crushed, yet incredibly, 2 weeks later, she woke up from the coma and made a full recovery. The reason she survived was just crazy. By pure chance, she landed directly on a fire ant nest, disturbing the venomous ants. In response, they came out of their nests and swarmed her body, stinging and biting her over 200 times. Fire ant venom, known as solanopsin, stimulates the nervous system. The overwhelming amount of it that was injected into her body kept her heart beating until paramedics arrived.
Wow. So the ants saved her life, dude. Hey, this is why we need insects, bro, because insects can save our lives, bro, just as much as we can save their lives too, bro.
Margaret Guire. Margaret was a young Canadian woman who had just married her husband, Herbert, in 1915. To celebrate, they decided to take a trip and boarded the RMS Lusitania in New York City, bound for Liverpool. They were enjoying their trip, having a routine dinner on the ship, when suddenly they heard a loud boom. The ship had been torpedoed by a German submarine. Herbert immediately escorted his wife Margaret to a lifeboat, where she was joined by 3 other women and a baby. However, as she looked up, she saw the ship's massive smokestacks above them, and she feared they might collapse onto their lifeboat. In a moment of panic, she climbed back up the stairs to the deck, while Herbert, believing she was safe, boarded another lifeboat with other passengers. As the Lusitania rapidly sank, Margaret tried to swim away from the wreckage, but her efforts were in vain. A whirlpool formed as the ship submerged, pulling her and 2 other men into one of the smokestacks. Miraculously, a sudden explosion from below blasted her back to the surface, where she was spotted and rescued by a nearby lifeboat. As she looked around, she saw Herbert in another lifeboat crying, believing she had died. Julie McSorley.
Wow, bro. These are like very like, you know what I'm saying, I'm not gonna say lucky accident, bro. These are low key coming by close as heck, bro. I'm not gonna lie, like imagine living to tell that tale, bro. Like you said, oh yeah, I would have died if the ship didn't blow up. Like what, bro?
Julie McSorley and Liz Cottrell were kayaking in San Luis Obispo, California, drawn by a spectacular event, humpback whales feeding on fish in the bay. There were lots of tourists on their boats and kayaks watching the whole thing. And even though whale watching is a popular activity, it comes with important safety precautions. Experts recommend staying at least 300 feet away from the feeding zone to avoid dangerous encounters. Unfortunately, Julie and Liz misjudged the distance. A tightly packed swarm of fish, known as a bait ball, suddenly moved alarmingly close to them. But they weren't the only ones to notice. Their presence had also caught the attention of a humpback whale. Before they had time to react, the whale lunged forward to swallow the fish, but in the process, it also scooped up Julie and Liz. Trapped inside its massive mouth, they probably thought that they were about to be swallowed whole. After all, humpback whales can grow up to 56 feet long, a huge size from a human perspective. However, despite their enormous mouths, humpback whales have relatively small throats, only about the size of a human fist and capable of stretching to just 15 inches in diameter. They also lack teeth, meaning the two women weren't crushed. Luckily, a whale's natural instinct is to spit out anything that isn't fish, and that's exactly what happened. Moments later, Julie and Liz were spat out from the whale's mouth and surfaced unharmed. Matthew Lowe.
Wait, no, but how did they get out? Cause bro, aren't they? If a whale's in there, that means a shark's in there. You know how sharks love to smell blood, bro. So I want to know more about that story, bro. They should have told us like how they survived and everything, cause bro just said the whale spat him out. My nigga, that's not enough. That's not enough.
He was heading to his factory for a routine shift, just like any other day. Upon arriving, he immediately got to work. As he walked past an automated conveyor belt, he suddenly felt his overalls snag on something. Unfortunately, it was the conveyor itself. Before he could react, he was pulled onto the belt and dragged toward a 5-inch opening. Within seconds, his entire body was forced through the narrow tunnel. He could hear the cracks of his bones as the machine spat him out on the other side.
What?
Captain America: Brave New World is now streaming.
My bad, bro. Hey, we're living in the slums right now.
Miraculously, he remained conscious. Matthew's
Wait,
agonizing
how?
screams alerted his coworkers, who rushed to the scene. What they saw was horrifying. His back was broken in 2 places, his pelvis, ribs, and hips were nearly completely crushed.
His dick. Oh, his dick's broken.
And his abdomen was severely torn. He was rushed to the hospital, but doctors had little hope for his survival. They even advised his partner to prepare for the worst. However, against all odds, Matthew survived. After 6 surgeries and a month in the hospital, he slowly began to recover. 18 months later, he made a full recovery.
Yo.
Taiba.
Wait, he went back to work? Yo, I'm not gonna lie. If I were him, I would not have went back to work, bro. I would have quit that job immediately.
Taiba, a young Indian girl, went out for a walk when she came across a construction site. Intrigued, she decided to explore the area. The site was filled with debris.
Okay, you're just dumb. The others were freak accidents, bro, but you're just dumb. You decided to explore construction. Bro, I'm not exploring no construction site. Bro, if my friend's like, yo, bro, come on, let's go explore. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm all good, bro. I'm not, bro, cause they probably got metal all around, you know what I'm saying, out the outside. They got so much stuff, you know what I'm saying, that's laying around that you don't even know how to use. Exactly.
Half-finished structures, making it extremely risky to navigate, especially without proper equipment.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
As she walked through the site, she tripped and fell neck first onto a long metal rod protruding from the ground. Bystanders witnessed the horrifying scene and immediately called for an ambulance. When Taiba arrived at the hospital, doctors were left stunned. Miraculously, the rod had missed all vital nerves and blood vessels in her head. After a 35-minute surgery, doctors successfully removed the rod. Amazingly, she was discharged just 3 days later. Had she fallen just a few inches further forward, she would have died. Frayne Selak.
Bro, that girl's dumb though. I can't even lie to you. But bro, wow, like, bro, just imagine a metal rod just like, oh my, dude, and like, she could have died off shock, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that she didn't even die off shock was insane.
Selak is an elderly music teacher from Croatia, and he's both the luckiest and unluckiest man on earth. His first crazy experience happened in 1962 when he was on a train. A fault in the tracks caused the train to derail and plunge into the freezing river below. Most passengers either died in the crash or drowned in the submerged train, but Frayne miraculously survived with only a broken arm and managed to swim to shore. In 1963, just a year after the train incident, he was on a small plane when, mid-flight...
Wow, bro, so this dude's just having a really bad, you know what I'm saying? He's just having, bad, what do you call it? Bad times after bad time, bro. It's insane, bro.
As the aircraft went into a free fall, a malfunctioning door blew open, yanking Frayne out of the plane. Without a parachute, he must have thought he was going to die. The plane crashed into a hill, killing all 19 passengers on board. However, Frayne survived by landing on a haystack, escaping with only minor injuries.
There's no way, bro. There's no way he just landed on. Oh, wow.
2 years later, in 1965, he was traveling on a bus that was.
Bro, this dude was just having the worst decade of his life.
The bus's wheels to lock up, sending the vehicle crashing through the safety barrier and into the valley below. 4 passengers lost their lives, yet Frayne survived once again. After multiple accidents involving public transportation, he decided to rely on his own car, only to find that it wasn't any safer. In 1970, while driving, his engine
he's had the worst
burst
decade of
into
his
flames.
life, bro.
Miraculously, he managed to jump out
Dude,
in time and survive.
This has to be fake. There is no way this dude has survived 4 things in a row. Bro was like, all right, I'm gonna go on the train. Oh no, we drowned. I don't want to go on a train. I'm going to play airplane. Oh no, we went on an airplane. No, I don't want to go on there. Don't worry, bro. Like what's next? What's next? This dude's gonna start walking and then something he might run into. You know what I'm saying? Get into a crash. I'm like, bro, what?
Only brush with fire. 3 years later, in 1973,
Bro.
while driving another car, the fuel pump ruptured, causing yet another fire. This time,
At this point,
the
just
flames
walk.
were blown directly toward
At this
him
point,
through
just
the air
walk,
vents.
bro.
Despite suffering burns, he once again managed to escape. As if that weren't enough, in 1975, he survived being hit by a bus. Then, just a year later, he had another near-death experience when his car fell off a mountain road.
What the-
plummeting
bro,
300
no,
feet
this
after
has to
a
be
careless
fake,
driver
bro.
forced him off the road. The car exploded upon impact, but Frayne managed to survive by jumping out of the vehicle's window mid-fall and landing on a tree. And by the way, he won the lottery in 2003. If you liked this video, subscribe.
Yeah, hey, bro, this dude Frayne survived everything, bro. Frayne, bro, you the MVP, bro. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I can't even hate. I'm not gonna hate, bro. You deserve that. You deserve that lottery ticket, bro. But man, let me know what we're gonna react to next. Until next time, see y'all boys later.